Get your hands where I can see them, girl. People like you don't carry designer bags unless they're stolen. The words cut through the subway tunnel like a slap. The laughter that followed wasn't nervous, it was cruel. Officer McKenna grinned wide, the kind of grin men wear when they think they have power. He shoved the young black woman toward the tiled wall, cuffs snapping tight around her wrists. The crowd froze, phones lifted. The badge on his chest gleamed beneath the white lights, and every click of metal sounded like a verdict. She didn't scream, didn't plead. Her voice, when it came, was low and calm. "Officer, you're making a mistake," he smirked. "Yeah? Then call your mom. Let's see if she can save you. If you have ever been judged by the color of your skin instead of the weight of your worth, do not move." In less than 10 minutes, that same officer will learn who he just humiliated and why the whole station will fall silent when she arrives. It was 8:42 in the morning. Rush hour, New York City. The air tasted like electricity and coffee. Her name was Maya Carter, 25, corporate strategist, quiet confidence wrapped in beige linen. To him, she was just another suspicious black professional who didn't belong in a tailored suit. "Step back, folks," McKenna barked, his voice echoing off tile. "She's under investigation." A woman nearby whispered to her son. "She didn't do anything." The boy whispered back, "Then why's he laughing?" Maya kept her chin high. Her mother had taught her that silence can be sharper than any word. But this silence was different. This silence had witnesses. McKenna leaned close. "What? Cat got your tongue? Or do you only talk when you're begging?" She met his eyes. "I don't beg." A flicker of uncertainty passed through him, but pride won. He laughed again, that loud, mocking kind that fills space like smoke. "Sure you don't. Call mommy. Maybe she's a lawyer or something." And then the ground seemed to shift. From the far end of the platform came the measured rhythm of boots on tile, slow, sure, commanding. Commuters turned, eyes widening. The crowd parted like water. A woman in full military uniform walked forward, medals glinting, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the officer holding her daughter. McKenna's grin faltered. The air grew heavy. Colonel Evelyn Carter, retired Special Forces, CEO of Carter Defense Systems, didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Officer McKenna," she said, every syllable razor clean, "release my daughter now." He tried to laugh, one last time. "Your mom? Special Forces?" But the sound broke halfway through, because the truth was already standing in front of him, discipline, command, and power in a single stare. The moment the colonel's voice hit the air, the laughter died. The subway station seemed to hold its breath. Every hum of the fluorescent lights, every shuffle of a commuter's shoe, every camera lens rising from a bystander's phone suddenly felt deliberate. Officer McKenna's smirk trembled but did not fade completely. He turned to face the approaching woman, still gripping Maya's arm like it would prove something. "Back up, ma'am," he said. "This is an active detainment. You cannot interfere." Colonel Evelyn Carter stopped 3 feet away. She did not blink. The sunlight from the stairwell caught the edge of her uniform, washing the blue fabric in pale gold. Her posture was still, but the quiet authority in her stance drew every eye. "Release my daughter," she repeated. "Immediately." McKenna laughed again, but this time it sounded thin, forced. "Your daughter? Sure, and I am the president." He glanced over at his partner, Officer Reynolds, who stood frozen near the turnstiles. Reynolds' hand hovered near his radio, unsure whether to call for backup or disappear. "She fits the description," McKenna continued. "Brown bag, beige suit, nervous behavior. You can check our dispatch log. We are doing our job." Colonel Carter's eyes narrowed just slightly. "Your job," she said, voice steady, "is to uphold the law, not invent it." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "She is definitely military." Another added, "That badge on her chest, it is real." Maya stood motionless between them. The cuffs pressed against her skin, cold and tight. Her pulse thudded against steel. She wanted to speak, but her mother's presence was enough. She had seen that calm before in childhood memories of drills, of discipline, of a woman who never raised her voice but always commanded a room. McKenna shifted his stance. "You are not authorized to be here," he said. "You are obstructing an officer." Colonel Carter's gaze never moved from his eyes. "Obstructing?" she asked quietly. "No, correcting." The sound of phone cameras clicking multiplied. The moment had turned into something bigger, a spectacle of authority meeting arrogance, power meeting prejudice. From the crowd, a young black man called out, "She told you who she is, man. Look at her uniform." McKenna snapped back, "Stay out of it." But even as he barked, his hand loosened slightly on Maya's wrist. He could feel the attention shift, the tide of control slipping away. Maya looked up at him then, her voice calm but sharp. "You said people like me do not carry designer bags," she said. "Do people like you carry accountability?" A collective murmur followed, half gasp, half approval. The officer's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone," he said. Evelyn stepped forward once more, her boots striking the tile with a sound that felt like judgment itself. "Officer McKenna," she said, "you have exactly 10 seconds to remove those cuffs, return her property, and apologize." He scoffed, but there was a crack in it now. "Or what?" She raised her chin slightly. "Or you will watch your career end before this train leaves the station." The tension vibrated through the air like static. The officer's hand twitched toward his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7-4 requesting—" A firm voice interrupted from behind. "Unit 7-4, stand down." Every head turned. The speaker was a man in a crisp navy suit, badge clipped to his belt, Lieutenant Samuels, Internal Affairs. He had been in the crowd the whole time. "Ma'am," he said, nodding at Colonel Carter, "we received your alert through federal channels." McKenna blinked. "Had alert?" Samuels looked at him, expression blank but tone ice cold. "Yes, officer. The federal channel linked to the Department of Defense." The realization hit slowly. His smirk vanished entirely. His grip on Maya's wrist loosened, the cuffs rattling as he fumbled for the key. Evelyn did not move, only watched. When the cuffs finally clicked open, Maya rubbed her wrists, the red marks still burning. "Apologize," Evelyn said. McKenna swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I was only—" "Apologize," she repeated. He hesitated. The crowd waited. The silence pressed down until his voice came out small, almost broken. "I am sorry, ma'am. I misjudged the situation." End. Evelyn's eyes held him for another long second before she nodded once. "No, officer," she said. "You misjudged my daughter's worth." The lieutenant stepped closer. "Colonel Carter, if you would, I will handle the disciplinary process personally." Evelyn nodded again, then turned to her daughter. "Are you hurt?" Maya shook her head, her voice soft. "Just tired of proving who I am." Evelyn placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let them learn who they are instead." "Oh," the crowd erupted in murmurs again, phones still raised, recording every second. A few people clapped softly, unsure if they were allowed to. Others just stood in awe, watching the woman who had turned humiliation into command. As they began to walk away, Evelyn paused beside McKenna. "You told her to call her mother," she said quietly. She did. Then she walked toward the exit, boots echoing through the tunnel, her daughter beside her. The lieutenant followed in silence. Behind them, Officer McKenna stood frozen, surrounded by witnesses, the sound of his authority collapsing around him like the last echo of a siren fading into shame. The train screeched into the station, its brakes screaming like the end of an argument, but no one boarded. Every passenger on the platform stayed still, caught between disbelief and awe. They had just watched a police officer unravel under the quiet authority of a black woman who did not need to raise her voice. Colonel Evelyn Carter and her daughter, Maya, stood near the center of the platform. The cuffs lay on the floor, glinting like discarded arrogance. Evelyn's uniform looked untouched, pressed with military precision, while Maya's blazer still bore the faint crease where the officer's hand had grabbed her. Lieutenant Samuels, the man from Internal Affairs, adjusted his badge and spoke in a low, careful tone. "Colonel, I have already contacted the precinct. Officer McKenna will be escorted for immediate review. His partner will be questioned as well." Evelyn gave a short nod. "Good. Make sure the body camera footage is secured before it disappears." He hesitated, then admitted, "It was never activated." Her jaw tightened. "Of course not." The crowd murmured again. A woman with gray hair and a pink scarf stepped forward. "Ma'am," she said, her voice trembling, "I have been taking the subway for 30 years. I have seen men like him my whole life, but I have never seen anyone stop him like that." Evelyn looked at her, softening for a moment. "You do not stop men like him by yelling," she said. "You stop them by being undeniable." The woman's eyes glistened. She whispered, "Thank you," and stepped back into the crowd. Maya inhaled deeply, trying to steady her voice. "Mom," she said quietly, "why do I feel more embarrassed than angry?" Evelyn turned to her daughter, studying her face. Because you are kind, she said. But kindness is not weakness. It is control. Remember that. Behind them, McKenna stood rigid, his pride crumbling into fragments. His partner, Officer Reynolds, had already taken a step away, like a man desperate to avoid the fallout. The lieutenant spoke into his radio, summoning 2 more officers from the stairs. "Escort him out," Samuels ordered. "Now." "Oh." The sound of McKenna's own cuffs clicking shut echoed eerily the same metal that had gripped Maya's wrists moments before. He winced at the irony, eyes darting toward Evelyn. "This is not over," he muttered. She faced him squarely. "You are right," she said. "It is only beginning." As McKenna was led away, the tension in the air shifted. People started talking again, quiet at first, then louder. Someone shouted, "That was justice." Another replied, "No, that was dignity." Esme, a teenager near the vending machine, whispered to his friend, "That lady, she could be in a movie." His friend replied, "Nah, that was real. That was power." Maya exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. She pressed them together, hiding the faint red marks that still circled her wrists. "He saw a thief," she said softly, "because he could not imagine success looking like me." Evelyn looked toward the tracks. "That is what they fear most," she said. "The kind of success they cannot define." Ugh. The train doors opened, but no one moved. Then, slowly, people began to step forward, one by one, as if uncertain whether it was appropriate to return to normal life after witnessing something so raw. The colonel placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Let us go," she said. They stepped inside the car together. A young Latina woman sitting near the door quickly stood up, offering her seat. "Please, ma'am," she said to Evelyn. "You deserve it." Evelyn shook her head. "Keep it. You earned it by watching." The woman smiled faintly, eyes wet. "My mother was arrested once for defending herself," she said. "I wish someone like you had been there." Evelyn gave a small nod. "Then be that person next time." The doors hissed shut, and the train began to move. The city outside blurred into streaks of gray and yellow light. Inside the quiet car, Maya stared at her reflection in the window. Her mother's reflection stood beside hers, steady, centered. She whispered, "You never flinch." Evelyn looked straight ahead. "I flinch inside," she said, "but no one earns the right to see it." The train clattered through the tunnel, metal and rhythm mixing like a drumline of control. Across the aisle, a man in a business suit glanced at them, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Are you Colonel Carter? From Carter Defense Systems?" Evelyn met his gaze, calm but direct. "Yes." His jaw dropped slightly. "I read about your work with Homeland. You are the one who modernized their entire security grid." She inclined her head once. "We modernized accountability," she said. He nodded awkwardly. "Well, what happened back there, people needed to see that." Evelyn turned back to her daughter. "They always need to see it," she said. "The question is, when will they start believing it?" Maya leaned her head back against the window. The vibration of the train hummed beneath her skin, steady and relentless. For the first time that morning, she allowed herself to close her eyes. Evelyn watched her daughter's reflection fade into the blur of light. Her own face stayed firm, unyielding. But somewhere deep beneath the uniform, beneath the medals and posture, a quiet ache pulsed a tiredness that no rank could cure. The colonel looked out at the dark tunnel sliding by and whispered to herself, almost inaudibly, "How many more times must we prove we belong?" The question lingered in the hum of the train, unanswered, echoing into the next station where another officer, another assumption, and another reckoning waited for someone else who looked like them. When the train reached the next station, the crowd thinned, but the silence between mother and daughter stayed heavy. The doors opened with a hiss, and the noise of the city rushed back in honking cars, chatter, the pulse of ordinary life resuming around something extraordinary. Evelyn and Maya stepped onto the platform together. Reporters had already begun to gather near the exit. Word traveled fast in New York, faster when it carried the scent of injustice and power. Someone had posted the video to social media before the train even left the previous station. The caption was simple: "Officer humiliates black woman, her mom shows up." Now the platform was a mixture of commuters and cameras. A young journalist held up a microphone as they passed. "Colonel Carter, is it true you are filing charges?" Evelyn did not slow down. "I do not need to file charges," she said without looking back. "The evidence filed itself." "Ugh." Maya stayed close, head down, but she could feel the weight of eyes on her, the kind of gaze that strips dignity before granting sympathy. She had spent years learning to appear composed in boardrooms, to keep her words sharp but polite. Yet right now, in her city, with her mother beside her, she felt small again. They stepped outside. The morning sun hit hard, reflecting off skyscraper glass and the chaos of flashing cameras. Lieutenant Samuels had followed them out of the station. "Colonel," he said, raising his voice above the noise, "Internal Affairs will handle this swiftly. I give you my word." Evelyn stopped on the sidewalk and turned to him. "Your word," she said quietly, "is not what protects my daughter when she is alone. Systems protect her, and right now, your system failed." He hesitated, guilt flickering across his face. "You are right, ma'am, but I promise you he will not wear that badge again." Maya finally spoke, her voice barely above the hum of the crowd. "That is not enough," she said. "There will always be another McKenna." Evelyn looked at her daughter, then at the officers forming a loose perimeter around the reporters. "Then we teach them what accountability looks like." As she said it, her phone buzzed. She reached into her pocket and answered without breaking stride. "Carter." A female voice on the other end sounded urgent. "Ma'am, this is headquarters. We saw the footage. It is already trending on national platforms. Do you want to issue a statement?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed against the sunlight. "Yes," she said. "Draft one now. I want it to read exactly as follows. Discipline without dignity is not order. It is abuse, and no badge will shield abuse." The assistant hesitated. "That is strong language, ma'am." "It is accurate language," Evelyn replied, then ended the call. Maya looked at her. "You are going to make them furious." Her mother gave a faint smile. "Good. Fury wakes the sleeping." They began to walk toward the street where a black SUV waited, the driver already holding the door open. But as Evelyn reached for the handle, a voice called out behind them. "Colonel Carter!" It was the same journalist from the platform, breathless but determined. "Do you think your rank gave you power today?" she asked. Evelyn paused, her reflection caught in the SUV window. She turned slowly, her tone low but precise. "No, power without moral ground is just noise. What gave me power today was restraint." The journalist's eyes widened. She stammered, "Do you mean you would have reacted differently if she were not your daughter?" Evelyn's gaze was steady. "Every woman who looks like my daughter is my daughter," she said. The crowd went silent for a heartbeat. Cameras flashed. That one sentence would replay across every network by nightfall. Inside the car, Maya sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "You did not have to do all this," she said softly. Evelyn looked at her. "Yes, I did. Silence is comfortable for the people who benefit from it." Traffic began to move, the city swallowing them back into its endless rhythm. For several blocks, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and the muted horns outside. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "When I was little," she said, "you told me that soldiers do not act out of anger, they act out of purpose. Did you mean that today?" Her mother nodded slowly. "Yes, anger burns fast, purpose endures." Maya turned to look out the window. "Then what is the purpose now?" Evelyn leaned back, eyes fixed on the skyline. "To remind them that authority is not immunity, to remind you that composure is not surrender, and to remind myself that justice is never finished, it is only paused." At that moment, her phone buzzed again. It was another call from headquarters. She answered. "Report." "Oh, ma'am," the voice said, "we have received a statement from the police union. They are claiming the officer acted in accordance with procedure." Evelyn's voice turned to steel. "Then procedure is broken. Release my footage to the press." "But ma'am, that is an order." She ended the call and placed the phone face down on the seat. Maya looked at her mother's reflection in the tinted glass. "You just started a war," she said quietly. Evelyn's lips curved into a faint smile, not of pride but of certainty. "No," she said. "I just ended a habit." The SUV turned down Park Avenue, its dark windows catching the morning Sunday. Behind them, the news vans multiplied, the story spreading like wildfire. A single headline began to rise across screens across the city. Colonel Carter challenges. NYPD. After racist arrest, authority is not immunity. Inside the car, Evelyn closed her eyes for the first time that morning. She exhaled slowly. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the exhaustion, the weight, the sadness beneath the armor. Then she opened her eyes again, steady, unbreakable. "Drive to headquarters," she said. It is time they learned what accountability looks like up close. The black SUV pulled into the private entrance of Carter Defense Systems headquarters, a tower of glass and steel that seemed to hum with precision. The building stood 12 stories tall in midtown Manhattan, wrapped in mirrored panels that reflected the morning light like a shield. As the vehicle stopped, the lobby guards straightened instantly, their posture crisp as if the air itself had sensed her arrival. Colonel Evelyn Carter stepped out first, the heels of her boots striking marble. Maya followed, her steps quieter, more hesitant. This was her mother's world, polished, disciplined, unbending. Inside, the lobby walls displayed framed commendations, medals, and photographs of operations led by Evelyn during her years in Special Forces. But it was the motto engraved above the reception desk that caught Maya's eyes. "Strength without integrity is just force." Evelyn walked past the front desk without pause. "Boardroom in 5 minutes," she said to her assistant, who was already at her side with a tablet in hand. "Yes, ma'am," the woman replied. "The executive team is waiting." "Oh." Maya followed her mother into the elevator. The mirrored walls reflected them side by side, one in a pristine military uniform, the other in a rumpled beige suit with faint red marks on her wrists. 2 generations of composure under pressure, both carrying different kinds of battle scars. "You do not have to come upstairs," Evelyn said, not unkindly. "You can rest. You have been through enough this morning." Maya shook her head. "No, I need to see how this ends." "Up." Evelyn's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before hardening again. "Then stand tall," she said. "In this building, we do not react. We demonstrate." When the elevator doors opened, the boardroom was already alive with tension. 10 executives sat around the long glass table, murmuring in low voices. Screens along the wall displayed live news feeds, headlines flashing with her name and the words, "Subway confrontation goes viral." The chief communications officer, a man in a navy suit with a nervous twitch in his jaw, stood as she entered. "Colonel Carter, thank you for coming so quickly. The video has reached over 5 million views. We are being tagged in every major outlet." Evelyn set her briefcase on the table. "Good," she said. "Then the truth is traveling faster than their excuses." He blinked, unsure how to respond. "Public relations is concerned, this could escalate into a political issue." "The police union is already defending the officer," she interrupted. "Predictable and pathetic." Another executive, an older white man named Douglas Hale, leaned forward with cautious diplomacy. "Colonel, may I play devil's advocate for a moment?" Her eyes met his, steady and cold. "You may try." He cleared his throat. "While the officer's behavior was unacceptable, engaging in public confrontation may jeopardize our government contracts. Some officials might see your stance as adversarial." The room went silent. Evelyn clasped her hands behind her back, her posture straight as a line drawn in sand. "If truth jeopardizes contracts," she said, "then the contracts were built on cowardice." Douglas flinched slightly but said nothing more. Evelyn turned to the communications officer. "Issue the statement exactly as I dictated it earlier. No edits. And add one more line." He nodded, pen hovering. "Which line, ma'am?" "Justice is not a brand campaign. It is a standard." As he scribbled it down, Maya watched her mother's reflection in the boardroom glass. Every word, every gesture carried the weight of someone who had been silenced before and had vowed never to be again. The chief of operations, a tall woman in her 50s, spoke next. "Colonel, the footage shows remarkable composure from both you and your daughter. It is powerful. Would you consider letting us use this moment in our leadership training programs? It fits our message of strength under pressure." Evelyn turned her head slowly, her expression unreadable. "My daughter was humiliated in public. That is not a teaching moment. That is a mirror." The woman swallowed hard. "Of course, ma'am. I meant no offense." Evelyn nodded once. "None taken. But remember, mirrors show who we are, not who we wish to be." Across the table, Maya's phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen, hundreds of unread messages, notifications, tags, and interview requests. Her name was trending alongside her mother's. She locked the phone quickly, feeling the heat of unwanted attention. Evelyn noticed. "They will try to turn you into a headline," she said. "Do not let them." Maya sighed. "How do I stop them?" "You do not stop them," Evelyn replied. "You outlast them." The communications officer cleared his throat again. "Colonel, Media crews are waiting outside. Would you like to hold a press conference this afternoon? Evelyn looked around the table at the nervous faces, the darting eyes, the shallow fear disguised as professionalism. Then she said, "Yes, but not here." "Where, ma'am?" "The same station where it happened," she said. "If they want a story, they can stand where my daughter stood." Gasps rippled through the room. The officer nearly dropped his pen. "You want to go back there?" Evelyn straightened. "That is where justice was violated. That is where it begins again." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "Mom, are you sure?" Her mother looked at her, calm as ever. "Courage is not comfort, Maya. It is clarity." The room fell silent again. Every executive could feel it, the shift from discussion to decision. Colonel Carter had spoken, and her words were not suggestions. "Prepare security," she ordered. "Inform the press we will speak at noon." She picked up her briefcase and turned toward the door. As she walked out, the words etched above the boardroom door caught the light again. "Strength without integrity is just force." Maya followed quietly, her heels echoing behind her mother's boots. She whispered, almost to herself, "They think you are unstoppable." Evelyn glanced back just once, her eyes sharp and kind all at once. "No one is unstoppable," she said, "but truth should be." Ugh. Then she walked toward the elevator, each step a promise that the story which began in a subway tunnel was far from over and that the reckoning had only just begun. By 11:30 that morning, the news vans had already lined both sides of the street outside the Brooklyn subway station. Reporters adjusted their microphones against the wind, producers shouted over walkie-talkies, and pedestrians stopped to watch the growing crowd. The video of the confrontation had exploded online, overnight shared, reposted, dissected. Commentators were already calling it the subway reckoning. Inside her SUV, Colonel Evelyn Carter sat motionless, eyes fixed on the station entrance ahead. She wore the same uniform as before, polished, immaculate, every medal in place. Yet there was something different in the air around her now. Power carried weight, but dignity carried silence, and she carried both like armor. Maya sat beside her, staring at her own reflection in the tinted window. "They are calling me the girl from the video," she said quietly. "No one even uses my name." Evelyn turned her head. "Let them call you what they want," she said. "A name does not define you. What you stand for does. But it feels like they are watching me for all the wrong reasons," Maya murmured. "Not because they care, but because they are entertained." Evelyn's voice softened, though her posture did not. "That is the curse of truth in public view. It always starts as spectacle before it becomes lesson." The driver glanced back through the mirror. "Ma'am, the press is ready. The police commissioner has arrived as well." Evelyn nodded once. "Good. Let him stand where my daughter stood." They stepped out into the flash of cameras. Reporters shouted questions immediately. "Colonel Carter, are you suing the city?" "Colonel, did you plan this protest?" "Ma'am, what message are you sending to law enforcement?" Evelyn did not answer. Her stride was measured, steady. The crowd split naturally as she moved, Maya a step behind her. The commissioner waited at the bottom of the subway stairs, flanked by two officers in dress blues. His name was Robert Givens, a tall man with gray hair and an expression trained to appear sympathetic. "Colonel Carter," he began, extending his hand, "thank you for agreeing to meet. On behalf of the department, I want to express my regret for what occurred." Evelyn's gaze dropped to his hand but did not take it. "Regret is not accountability, Commissioner. It is punctuation. I am here for a sentence, not a pause." The cameras clicked furiously. The commissioner withdrew his hand, adjusting his tie. "We have suspended Officer McKenna pending investigation. That is the proper process." "Proper," she repeated, the word sharp as glass. "Is it proper that his body camera was off? Proper that his partner said nothing? Proper that your officers still use the phrase 'fits the description' as a weapon?" His jaw tightened. "We are reviewing procedures." "Then review them in front of the people they harm," she said, "not behind glass." Maya stood slightly behind her mother, watching the growing tension ripple through the crowd. The air buzzed with unease. Cameras captured every angle, every flicker of emotion. Evelyn turned toward the reporters. "You all came here for a statement," she said. "So here it is." The crowd leaned closer. Even the trains seemed to quiet underground. "This station," she said, her voice carrying over the street, "is not just concrete and rails. It is a mirror. Yesterday, It reflected how easily prejudice dresses itself as procedure. A man with a badge believed he could define my daughter by her color instead of her character. And every person who watched and stayed silent was taught something dangerous, that silence is safety. The murmurs grew. People recorded every word, the sound of her voice slicing through the noise of the city. "I did not come here to shame one officer," she continued. "I came here to challenge an entire habit. The habit of suspicion that greets every black woman who dares to walk with confidence. The habit of disbelief that follows every professional who does not fit the picture in your mind." The commissioner shifted uneasily, but she went on. "My daughter did not need a rescuer. She needed a witness, and now the world has seen." Maya felt her throat tighten. The crowd was utterly still. The colonel's tone had not risen once, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 voices. Evelyn looked back at the commissioner. "You asked what message I am sending to law enforcement. Here it is. Accountability is not an attack. It is maintenance. If your system cannot survive scrutiny, it was never strong, only protected." A murmur of applause began, quiet but building. Reporters leaned closer, microphones trembling in their hands. The commissioner's face flushed. He cleared his throat. "Colonel, while I respect your service and your words, I must remind you that law enforcement faces dangers daily. Split-second decisions are not always perfect." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Neither are first impressions, Commissioner, but they still define lives." The crowd erupted in clapping. Phones raised high. A chant started somewhere near the back. "Justice with dignity! Justice with dignity!" And within seconds, it spread like a current through the crowd. Maya looked at her mother, astonished. "You turned a press conference into a movement," she whispered. Evelyn's eyes remained on the commissioner. "No," she said. "I reminded them that movements start where respect ends." Lieutenant Samuels appeared beside them, whispering urgently. "Ma'am, headquarters just called. The mayor wants to meet immediately. They are requesting your presence at City Hall." Evelyn looked toward the cameras once more. "Tell him I will come," she said. "But I am not bringing apologies, I am bringing evidence." The commissioner took a small step forward. "What evidence?" Evelyn's gaze did not waver. "The footage your officer tried to erase. We recovered it." A wave of shock rippled through the reporters. The commissioner's face drained of color. "That is impossible. The body camera was disabled." "Disabled does not mean deleted," she said. "My company designs defense encryption systems, Commissioner. Did you really think I walked away without proof?" The crowd exploded gasps, flashes, shouts of disbelief. Evelyn turned to her daughter. "It is time," she said simply. "Justice must be seen, not just spoken." Then she faced the cameras again. "At noon, City Hall. Every citizen is welcome. Bring your phones. Bring your questions. Bring your truth." The chant reignited, louder now, rolling through the street like thunder. "Justice with dignity, justice with dignity." Evelyn stood in the center of it, calm and unmoved, her voice low but unwavering. "This is not vengeance," she said. "It is verification." Then she turned toward the SUV, the roar of the crowd behind her growing like a storm ready to cleanse the city. City Hall was already surrounded by barricades and camera crews by the time the clock struck 12. The air over lower Manhattan shimmered with tension. Helicopters hovered above the courthouse district, their rotors chopping through the air like impatient questions. News anchors stood shoulder to shoulder on the marble steps, clutching microphones as if they were shields. When the black SUV turned the corner onto Park Row, a ripple moved through the crowd. Reporters surged forward, flashes erupting like lightning. "She's here!" someone shouted. "Colonel Carter is here!" Evelyn stepped out first, posture unbroken, uniform immaculate. Her medals caught the sunlight like fragments of truth. Maya followed, dressed now in a dark navy blazer that mirrored her mother's steadiness. Behind them, 2 members of her security detail, both women, both veterans, fell into formation. The police presence around City Hall was heavy, but subdued. Officers lined the steps in silence. None spoke, none smiled. They watched the woman who had become the city's reckoning, the one whose composure had cut deeper than any protest chant. Evelyn ascended the steps slowly, every stride deliberate. The crowd hushed, a living tide of anticipation. When she reached the top, the mayor and the police commissioner stood waiting by the grand entrance. The commissioner's expression was rigid. The mayor, a man in his early 50s with kind eyes but a nervous jaw, extended his hand. "Colonel Carter," he said, his voice carrying through the microphones. "Thank you for coming. New York owes you a conversation." Evelyn took his hand briefly, then let go. "Conversations are easy, Mr. Mayor," she said. "Accountability is harder." He nodded solemnly. "Then let us begin with accountability." They entered the rotunda, where dozens of journalists and city officials had gathered. Cameras lined the balcony, red lights blinking like a dozen silent witnesses. A large monitor stood behind the podium, waiting. Evelyn stepped forward. "I will not take long," she said, her voice filling the chamber. "You have all seen the public video, the one filmed by bystanders. What you have not seen is the official recording recovered from Officer McKenna's device." A murmur swept through the room. The commissioner stiffened. "That footage was corrupted," he said quickly. Evelyn turned her gaze toward him, calm but cutting. "No, Commissioner, it was encrypted. There is a difference." The mayor gestured to a technician standing by the monitor. "Play the footage," he said quietly. The screen flickered to life. The sound of subway noise filled the room, the crowd murmuring, the metallic clatter of handcuffs. Then came the voice everyone recognized. "Get your hands where I can see them, girl, people, like you don't carry designer bags unless they're stolen." Gasps rippled through the rotunda. The words echoed against the marble walls, chilling in their certainty. The camera angle showed McKenna's face smirking, unbothered. Maya's voice followed, quiet, but clear. "Officer, you're making a mistake." The video continued, uncut this time. The moment Evelyn arrived, the command in her voice, the silence that followed. Every syllable replayed with the clarity of truth that no public statement could distort. By the end, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the projector. Evelyn stood still, letting the weight of the footage settle. The mayor lowered his gaze. The commissioner's complexion had turned pale. Evelyn spoke again. "This is not one officer's mistake. This is a pattern wearing a uniform. It happens in airports, in boardrooms, in classrooms, and yes, in train stations. My daughter was not detained for suspicion of theft. She was detained for suspicion of existing in the wrong skin." A reporter near the front row stood, voice trembling. "Colonel, what do you want the city to do?" Evelyn looked directly at her. "I want a policy written in law that no officer can disable a body camera without immediate disciplinary review. I want racial bias training that is more than a PowerPoint. I want systemic oversight that cannot be erased by paperwork." Her tone never rose, yet the words landed like hammer strikes. The mayor turned to the commissioner. "Can we commit to this?" The commissioner hesitated, glancing around the room. He could feel the weight of cameras on him, the expectation, the shame. "We will review the proposal," he said carefully. Evelyn took a single step forward. "Review it? No, implement it. Because the next time your officers review someone like my daughter, there might not be a camera or a mother to intervene." The crowd erupted in murmurs again. Some clapped softly, others wiped tears. The mayor swallowed hard, realizing the balance of the room had shifted. He turned back to her. "Colonel Carter," he said, "on behalf of this city, I am sorry, and I agree change will start today." Evelyn inclined her head slightly. "Apologies mean little without enforcement. I expect a written order within 48 hours. The mayor nodded again. "You have it." At that, Evelyn turned away from the podium. Maya followed, her heart pounding. They descended the steps together, back toward the sunlight where the crowd waited. As they emerged from City Hall, cheers erupted. People held signs that had appeared within hours. "Authority is not immunity, justice with dignity, and we see you, Maya." Evelyn stopped for a moment, looking out at them all. The sun glinted off the marble, catching her uniform in a blaze of gold. "Do you hear that?" she said quietly to her daughter. Maya nodded. "They're chanting." Her mother smiled faintly. "No, they're remembering." A young girl in the front row raised her phone and whispered, "She's the one from the video." Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "No, baby, she's the reason you will not be." Evelyn heard it. She met the woman's eyes and nodded once, a silent exchange between two generations of strength. Then, without another word, she raised her hand to the crowd in acknowledgement. Not a wave, not a victory gesture, just a quiet salute to truth, to courage, to the long road still ahead. As the chant rolled louder through the streets, Maya leaned closer and whispered, "What happens next?" Evelyn's eyes followed the skyline. "Now," she said, "we make sure this was not just a story. We make it a standard." And with that, she descended the steps of City Hall, her boots steady against the stone, her daughter beside her, both of them walking not away from the fight but straight into history. That evening, The city had changed its rhythm. The constant pulse of New York traffic felt slower, heavier, as if every streetlight and passing cab carried a whisper of the same story. Screens in shop windows replayed the footage on loop. Evelyn's calm authority, the officer's collapse, the mayor's shaken promise. By sundown, the moment had become more than news. It was a mirror the city could not look away from. Inside the headquarters of Carter Defense Systems, the top-floor conference room glowed with warm light against the skyline. Evelyn stood by the window, her reflection merging with the night city below. Behind her, Maya sat at a long oak table surrounded by her mother's senior advisors. They were still in uniform, still processing what had unfolded at City Hall. A television on the far wall showed live commentary. The words, "Colonel Carter demands police reform," scrolled across the screen. A commentator's voice filled the room. Whether you see her as a hero or a disruptor, one thing is clear: she has changed the conversation. Evelyn muted the sound with a click. "They always love the conversation," she said quietly. "It is action they fear." Her chief advisor, Captain Nia Thompson, glanced at her tablet. "Ma'am, you should see this." She handed it over. The screen showed a flood of messages, hundreds of thousands of them. Some were praise, others were hate, all were raw. One read, "Thank you for standing up for us." Another, "Stay in your lane, soldier. The streets are not your battlefield." Evelyn scrolled through them without flinching. "They are wrong," she said. "The streets have always been the battlefield. We just stopped calling it one." Maya looked up, exhaustion shadowing her eyes. "Mom," the mayor called again. "He wants you to attend a follow-up meeting tomorrow with the Attorney General." Evelyn nodded. "Tell him I will be there, and tell him to bring more than words." She turned from the window, her gaze sweeping the room. "We are not done. The footage went viral, but that is not victory. It is evidence." Captain Thompson straightened. "Ma'am, our legal division has already drafted the framework for the accountability protocol you proposed. We can send it to City Hall by morning." Evelyn's expression softened for the first time that day. "Good. Make sure it includes independent civilian review, mandatory body camera activation, and disciplinary transparency." "Yes, ma'am." Maya studied her mother quietly. "You have not stopped since this morning," she said. "When do you rest?" Evelyn gave a faint smile. "Rest is earned, not scheduled." Maya frowned. "That sounds like something you used to tell your soldiers." Evelyn looked at her daughter, really looked at her. Beyond the fatigue, beyond the fame she had not asked for. "You are not a soldier," she said softly. "But you are in a war all the same. The difference is, your weapon is dignity." The words landed with weight. Maya leaned back, the city lights flickering across her face. "It feels like no matter what we do, people like McKenna will always exist," she said. "You remove one, another appears." Evelyn stepped closer. "Yes," she said, "but every time one is exposed, it costs the system something. Arrogance is expensive when the world is watching." Captain Thompson interrupted. "Ma'am, news just broke that Officer McKenna has resigned." Maya blinked. "Already?" Thompson nodded. "Effective immediately. The department is launching an internal audit." Evelyn's tone remained even. "Resignation is not accountability, it is escape. I want that audit public." "Yes, ma'am." As the meeting continued, the building's power dimmed slightly, the automatic evening cycle. The glass walls reflected the entire skyline, the Empire State Building lit gold, the bridges glowing like veins of light. Evelyn turned back to the window, her voice low, almost reflective. "When I was deployed overseas," she said, "we used to track the sound of our own hearts in the silence after a mission. That silence told us whether we had done the right thing. New York is in that silence now. The question is what it will hear." No one spoke for a long moment. Then Maya asked quietly, "And what do you hear?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "A storm gathering. Not of violence, but of conscience." Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. A message flashed from an unknown number. She opened it. "We see you. You made the department look weak. Be careful." Maya saw her mother's expression tighten. "What is it?" "Cowards behind screens," Evelyn said, locking the phone. "They mistake fear for power. Let them." Captain Thompson frowned. "Ma'am, should we alert security?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. Let them listen. The louder they whisper, the stronger the truth sounds." The clock on the wall ticked past 8:30. The meeting dissolved slowly as her team dispersed. Only Evelyn and Maya remained. The younger woman rose and walked to the window beside her mother. "When you were my age," she said. Did you ever think this is what your fight would look like? Cameras instead of rifles, words instead of weapons. Evelyn exhaled. A battlefield is a battlefield. The difference now is the wounds are invisible. Outside, the city lights reflected off her uniform, shimmering like quiet metals. She turned to Maya. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will not be gentle. Maya hesitated. What about you? Evelyn looked back toward the skyline. I will stay a while. Maya left the room, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. Evelyn stood alone for several minutes, listening to the faint hum of the city below. She could see her reflection superimposed over the horizon, a soldier-turned-mother-turned-symbol. She had not asked for any of it. Her phone buzzed again. Another message appeared, this time from an ally at City Hall. Be ready tomorrow. They will try to discredit the footage. Evelyn's eyes hardened. Let them try, she whispered. Truth does not flinch. She looked out at New York, its brilliance, its contradictions, its scars, and whispered, We are not done. Then, in the quiet of her office, as the lights dimmed to night mode and the city pulsed below, the colonel closed her eyes for just a second, not to rest, but to reload her resolve. The next morning began without color. The sky above Manhattan hung low and gray, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Overnight rain had slicked the streets, turning reflections of passing cars into streaks of silver and red. Inside Carter Defense Systems headquarters, the glass walls mirrored the somber tone outside. Colonel Evelyn Carter stood in the briefing room surrounded by her senior staff. The clock read 7:45. Her uniform was crisp, but her face showed the faint lines of fatigue. She had not slept. She had spent the entire night reviewing documents, security reports, and the raw metadata from the recovered body camera file. She was preparing for battle, not with weapons this time, but with evidence. Captain Nia Thompson entered holding a tablet. Ma'am, the mayor's office confirmed the meeting with the Attorney General for 10 o'clock. They also said there will be press access before and after. Evelyn nodded slowly. Good. Let them watch. Truth works best under bright light. Nia hesitated. There is something else, ma'am. The police union issued a statement an hour ago. She handed over the tablet. The screen displayed the headline. Union questions, authenticity of footage, claims video was edited. Maya, sitting at the far end of the table, looked up sharply. Edited? They are saying it is fake? Evelyn scanned the statement, her jaw tightening. They are not saying it is fake, she replied evenly. They are saying they wish it were. Nia frowned. They are calling for an independent forensic review. Evelyn handed the tablet back. Then give them one, but it will be ours. What do you mean, ma'am? By the time they try to discredit the footage, we will have already proven its integrity. She turned toward her communications officer. Contact our digital forensics team. Prepare a full chain of custody report, timestamps, file hashes, encryption logs, everything. Yes, ma'am. Maya leaned forward, eyes weary but determined. They will still twist it, Mom. Even if you show them the truth, they will call it manipulation. Evelyn looked at her daughter. Then we will not show them proof. We will make them see it. Nia nodded slowly. Visual demonstration. Exactly, Evelyn said. A live verification. She looked around the room, her voice gaining steel. At 10 o'clock when they gather at City Hall, I will not give them another speech. I will show them what happens when a lie meets data it cannot erase. Her team exchanged glances, half apprehension, half awe. Maya whispered, You are turning the press conference into an exposure. Evelyn replied, Into a reckoning. She moved toward the window, her reflection framed against the gray skyline. When I wore this uniform in the field, every mission began with surveillance gathering what the enemy could not hide. That has not changed. The enemy is just better dressed now. The room fell silent. Only the faint hum of electronics filled the space. Then Nia broke the quiet. Ma'am, we have another issue. Officer McKenna's lawyer released a statement this morning. Evelyn turned back. What did he say? Nia read from her notes. He claims the officer was following department policy. He insists the stop was justified based on reasonable suspicion of criminal intent. He also accuses you of using your influence to intimidate the department. Maya let out a bitter laugh. So now you are the villain. Evelyn smiled faintly. They always call justice intimidation when it looks back at them. She picked up a folder from the table and handed it to Nia. This is the official communication log between my office and the city's IT department. It proves when the footage was transferred, authenticated, and stored. Leak it at 9:45. Leak it? Yes, Evelyn said. To the press. Let them chase the truth before we even step into that building. Nia nodded, already typing. Maya watched her mother move with mechanical precision, every order, every sentence calculated. But behind the composure, she saw the fatigue building in her eyes. "Mom," she said quietly, "you do not have to fight every battle yourself." Evelyn paused, looking at her daughter. "I do not," she said softly, "but I have to lead the first one." At 9:30, they left the building. The motorcade moved through the city streets under escort. Crowds were already gathering near City Hall again, holding signs from the previous day. Reporters shouted questions as the SUV rolled past, but Evelyn stayed silent, eyes locked on the horizon. Inside the vehicle, Maya spoke without looking up. "What if this turns into something bigger than you intended?" Evelyn's response came without hesitation. "Then it was always meant to." The convoy reached the barricade line just before 10. The crowd had doubled in size since yesterday. Journalists jostled for position, microphones stretching forward like spears. The mayor, the attorney general, and the commissioner stood at the top of the steps, waiting. When Evelyn and Maya stepped out, the noise rose into a wave of shouts, questions, flashes. The colonel lifted her chin, eyes focused, her voice calm. "Follow me," she said to her daughter. They walked straight through the sea of cameras and up the steps. The crowd quieted again, the way it always did when her presence filled a space. Inside the rotunda, the officials turned toward her. The Attorney General spoke first. "Colonel Carter, we appreciate your cooperation, but please understand this meeting is not a hearing, it is a discussion." Evelyn gave a small nod. "Then let us discuss what cannot be denied." She gestured to her assistant, who wheeled in a secure black case and set it on the table. The room tensed. "What is that?" the commissioner asked. Evelyn opened the case. Inside was a sleek, silver laptop and a small encrypted drive, the Carter Defense System's emblem engraved on its surface. "Proof," she said simply. The Attorney General frowned. "We have already seen the footage." Evelyn looked him directly in the eye. "You have seen the copy. This is the original. And today, you will see something no one else has. The system your officer tried to disable, showing that it was never off." "Oh." Maya's breath caught. She had not known this part. The colonel plugged in the drive. The screen blinked to life, showing digital code streaming in real time. Evelyn's voice was steady, precise, surgical. "This," she said, "is the raw telemetry from the officer's body camera. Every second is logged, every frame time-stamped. When he thought he turned it off, the system kept recording through our defense-grade secondary cache. That is how truth survives corruption." The crowd of officials stared, stunned, as the playback began again now with audio and time markers that matched perfectly. Evelyn stood silent, arms folded, letting the data speak louder than any speech could. And in that silence, for the first time since the confrontation began, the system itself testified. The rotunda of City Hall fell into a silence so deep that even the hum of the monitors seemed distant. On the screen, line after line of digital code scrolled like the pulse of an undeniable truth. The playback of the officer's body camera continued, the timestamp synchronized with the subway's surveillance feed. There it was, every word, every laugh, every act of arrogance laid bare in cold, perfect data. When the footage ended, the screen froze on the image of Officer McKenna gripping Maya's wrist, his smirk halfway between amusement and disbelief. Underneath the still frame, a line of metadata glowed in white text. "Timestamp authenticated. File integrity verified." The Attorney General leaned forward, voice low. "This is impossible," he murmured. "If the device was disabled," Evelyn interrupted, her tone calm but cutting. "Disabled is not the same as disconnected. When my company builds surveillance encryption, we design it with redundancy. The data mirrored itself through a hidden cache channel. He tried to erase accountability. The system refused." Across the room, the police commissioner's face turned the color of ash. "You are saying your company was recording our officers?" Evelyn met his eyes without blinking. "No, I am saying your officer was recording himself. The truth only needed a safe place to hide." Gasps broke out among the officials. Reporters, though asked to remain silent, began typing furiously on their tablets, sending headlines into the ether. Maya stood behind her mother, her heart pounding. She had seen power before, corporate, political, even military, but never this kind. This was moral power, deliberate and measured. Evelyn was not raising her voice. yet every syllable struck like thunder. The Attorney General spoke again. "Colonel, this data, does it prove intent?" Evelyn turned toward the screen. "Play the audio from minute 3, she said. The technician rewound the file. The room filled once again with McKenna's voice. "She fits the description. Brown bag, beige suit. Nervous behavior, you know the type." Evelyn faced the officials. "Intent is not just what is said. It is what is assumed. That is how prejudice functions. It disguises itself as procedure." The Attorney General leaned back, exhaling slowly. "This will change everything." Evelyn's tone softened, though her expression did not. "It will change nothing unless you act. Truth without consequence is entertainment." The mayor, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Colonel Carter, what exactly are you asking for?" Evelyn walked closer to the table, the sound of her boots echoing through the rotunda. "A public admission of wrongdoing, an independent oversight committee to review racial bias complaints, and the immediate adoption of the Carter Integrity Protocol for all city law enforcement technology." The commissioner bristled. "That would give your company control over police data systems." Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "No, Commissioner, it would give the people control over the truth." The mayor rubbed his temples. "This is going to be explosive." "It already is," Evelyn replied. "The explosion is called visibility." At that moment, the double doors opened. A young assistant rushed in, whispering urgently to the Attorney General. He frowned, then looked at Evelyn. "Colonel, there is a live broadcast happening outside. Citizens have gathered. They are chanting for reform. There are thousands of them." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then let them listen." She walked to the window overlooking the steps. The crowd below filled the entire square. The chant rolled upward like a heartbeat. "Justice with dignity! Justice with dignity!" She turned back to the room. "This is what you hear when silence breaks." The commissioner stood abruptly. "I will not allow this city to be run by mob sentiment." Evelyn faced him calmly. "It is not mob sentiment, Commissioner. It is the sound of recognition, the sound of people realizing that fairness should not depend on fear." Maya stepped forward then, her voice trembling but clear. "He did not just humiliate me," she said. "He humiliated every person who has ever been treated like a suspect before being seen as a citizen. My mother can fight him with policy, but I am asking you to fight him with humanity." The room fell silent again. The Attorney General turned toward the mayor. "Sir, I believe we have only one choice." "Ugh." The mayor nodded reluctantly. "Effective immediately," he said slowly. "We will authorize the Carter Integrity Protocol. The city will release an official apology by the end of the day." Maya exhaled shakily. Evelyn did not smile, but her eyes softened with something close to relief. The commissioner spoke again, his voice tight. "And what happens to Officer McKenna?" Evelyn looked him squarely in the eye. "He will face the process he tried to deny my daughter the full weight of accountability." The Attorney General turned to the reporters. "This session is adjourned." But as the crowd began to move, Evelyn raised a hand. "One more thing." The room froze. She walked back to the podium and addressed the cameras directly. "This is not vengeance," she said. "This is maintenance. Systems, like cities, decay when we pretend they are unbreakable. Today was not about an officer or a policy. It was about proof. And proof, once seen, cannot be unseen." Her voice echoed through the hall, steady and final. She paused, then added, "We did not come here to make noise. We came here to make clarity." When she finished, she turned to Maya. "Let us go." As they descended the steps outside, the sunlight broke through the clouds. The crowd roared when they appeared. Cameras followed their every movement, flashes strobing against the stone facade. Maya reached for her mother's hand. "They are not chanting for me," she whispered. Evelyn squeezed her hand gently. "They are chanting because of you." The chant rose higher. "Justice with dignity, justice with dignity." And as they reached the bottom of the steps, Evelyn stopped, turning toward the ocean of faces. Her voice carried over the noise, firm but full of quiet power. "Dignity," she said, "is the loudest sound in the world when you refuse to silence it." Ugh. The crowd erupted, and for the first time since the confrontation began, the city did not feel divided. It felt awake. The city did not sleep that night. Helicopters still circled above downtown long after the press conference had ended, and the glow from digital billboards replayed the footage on loop. Every bar, every apartment, every late-night diner seemed to hum with the same conversation. For the first time in a long time, New York was not arguing about crime or power. It was arguing about accountability. Inside the Carter residence, a modern townhouse overlooking the East River, the air was heavy but calm. Evelyn sat alone in the living room, the only light coming from the window where the skyline shimmered against the water. Her uniform jacket hung neatly over the back of a chair. She was still wearing the white undershirt, her medals placed carefully on the table beside her like sleeping soldiers. The silence was thick enough to feel. It was not peace. It was pause. Upstairs, Maya lay awake, the hum of the city drifting through the half-open window. Her phone glowed on the nightstand, hundreds of messages piling up interview requests, praise, criticism, threats. She turned the screen face down. The glow still leaked through her fingers. Her mind replayed the moment at City Hall. The data on the screen, the faces in the crowd, the sound of her mother's voice slicing through noise like precision steel. Everyone saw Evelyn Carter as a symbol of strength, but Maya knew the truth beneath it. Strength always left a cost. Downstairs, Evelyn poured herself a glass of water. Her reflection in the window looked like a ghost of discipline, upright, unyielding. She whispered to it, "You did what you had to do." But even she could hear the edge of fatigue in her own voice. The clock on the wall ticked past 1:20 a.m. when the doorbell rang. It was not loud, but it was deliberate. Evelyn set the glass down and reached for the small handgun in the drawer near the entryway's standard military habit, not paranoia. She checked the security feed. Outside, under the pale streetlight, stood a uniformed man. Not police, blue, private, security, gray. She pressed the intercom. "Identify yourself." "Ma'am, I am Sergeant Miller with the Internal Security Division," the man said, his tone formal. "I have been assigned to deliver a confidential document from City Hall. It requires your signature." Evelyn hesitated. The mayor's office had promised updates in the morning, not midnight. Still, her instincts told her to see for herself. She unlocked the door but kept the chain fastened. "Hold it up." He raised a sealed envelope marked with the city insignia. The wax was unbroken. "Leave it on the step," she said. "Yes, ma'am." He placed it down and stepped back. She waited until he turned and walked away before unchaining the door. The envelope was cold from the rain. She carried it to the table, sliced it open, and unfolded the single page inside. Her eyes scanned the words once, then twice. Her jaw tightened. "Effective immediately, all pending disciplinary proceedings against Officer McKenna have been paused pending federal review. No further statements to the press are authorized without city approval." It was signed by the mayor. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, the paper trembling slightly in her hands. Her silence was dangerous now, the kind that gathered force before it broke. Footsteps came from the stairs. Maya appeared, barefoot, wearing one of her mother's old academy sweatshirts. "You are still awake," she said softly. Evelyn folded the letter and set it on the table. "So are you." "I could not sleep," Maya said, sitting across from her. "The phone will not stop buzzing. I had to turn it off." Evelyn's eyes lifted. "Good. Noise does not deserve your rest." Maya noticed the paper on the table. "What is that?" Evelyn hesitated, then slid it toward her. Maya read it quickly, then looked up in disbelief. "They are protecting him?" Evelyn's voice was quiet but razor sharp. "They are protecting themselves. So after everything you exposed the footage, the whole world saw it, and they still—" Maya's voice broke, anger rising. "How does he get to keep his life while we have to defend ours every day?" Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes steady. "Because comfort defends comfort, Maya. They will always protect what looks like them until someone forces them to see what they ignore." Maya shook her head. "Then what was all this for?" Evelyn took her daughter's hand. "To show the world what happens when truth stands alone. To prove that silence is not safety. To teach you that even when they move the goalposts, we still score by standing." Maya's eyes filled with frustrated tears. "But I am tired, Mom." Evelyn's tone softened. "Then rest. I will carry it tonight." They sat in silence for a long moment. The city lights flickered against their faces like small fires. Finally, Evelyn stood and walked to the window again. Outside, the rain had started falling slow, deliberate drops that slid down the glass like lines of code. "They think delaying justice will make us stop," she said quietly. "They think exhaustion is surrender, but exhaustion is just proof that the fight mattered." Maya rose and walked beside her, their reflections merging in the window again, two silhouettes of resilience. "What will you do?" she asked. Evelyn's answer came like a vow. I will not fight them in the streets. I will fight them in the systems. They used paperwork to protect him. I will use paperwork to expose them. She turned from the window, her face calm but fierce. Tomorrow morning, we file a federal injunction. And if they want to pause accountability, I will make sure the pause becomes the headline. Maya smiled faintly through the exhaustion. You never lose, do you? Evelyn met her gaze. Not when the truth keeps receipts. The clock struck 2 a.m. The rain thickened, the sound steady and rhythmic against the glass. Evelyn placed the folded letter back into the envelope and set it beside her medals. He thinks he walked away, she said quietly. But this paper just became evidence. Maya placed her head on her mother's shoulder, whispering, You scare them, Mom. Evelyn exhaled. Good, she said. It means they finally see me. Outside, lightning flashed across the skyline, illuminating the river below. The storm had begun not in the streets this time, but in the halls of power where truth was now marching, uniformed, patient, and unstoppable. Morning came heavy with fog. The city was quieter than usual, the streets damp with leftover rain and the kind of chill that carried the smell of iron and concrete. But inside the Carter townhouse, the air felt charged. Purpose had replaced sleep. Evelyn was already dressed by 6:30, her uniform pressed, her eyes sharp despite the fatigue beneath them. The envelope from City Hall sat on the kitchen counter like an uninvited guest. Maya came down the stairs in a gray sweater, her hair pulled back, her expression softer than the night before but still shadowed by disbelief. You are really doing this, she said. Evelyn poured coffee into 2 mugs. If I stop now, they win twice. Maya sat at the table. Twice? Yes, Evelyn said, setting the mug in front of her. Once when they humiliate us, and again when they convince us to be quiet about it. For a moment, they sat in silence. Outside, the hum of the city began to wake sirens in the distance, the soft murmur of early traffic. It sounded different today, as if even New York was watching. At 7:15, Captain Nia Thompson arrived. She had barely slept either. Her uniform was damp from the fog, but her eyes were bright with purpose. Ma'am, she said, the paperwork is ready. The injunction is drafted, and the legal team is on standby. We can file as soon as the courthouse opens. Evelyn nodded. Good. Has the media been alerted? Nia hesitated. Not officially, ma'am, but they will find out the moment it hits the public record. Perfect, Evelyn said. I prefer when the truth breaks itself. Maya watched as her mother signed the final page of the injunction, her handwriting precise and deliberate. Each stroke looked like command. What happens when they push back? Maya asked quietly. Evelyn looked up. They already have. This is not pushback. This is proof. At 7:45, the 3 women stepped out into the morning. The air was cold enough to bite. The driver opened the door to the black SUV, and they climbed in, the quiet hum of the engine breaking the stillness. As they drove, the city slowly came alive around them, newspapers being stacked, coffee carts steaming, people hurrying across crosswalks with their collars turned up, and everywhere, on every glowing screen, Evelyn's face stared back. The footage, the speech, the press conference. It had become more than a story now. It had become a conversation about power. The courthouse loomed ahead, its gray stone pillars veiled in mist. Outside, cameras had already gathered. Reporters, lawyers, and ordinary citizens waited in a restless line. As the SUV pulled up, the whispers began. There she is. That's the colonel. She is really filing against the city. Evelyn stepped out first, followed by Maya and Nia. Her boots hit the marble with the same deliberate rhythm she carried everywhere. She did not rush. She did not wave. She simply arrived. Inside, the courthouse was sterile white walls, fluorescent lights, echoes of shoes and murmured voices. The clerk behind the counter froze when he saw her approach. Colonel Carter, he stammered. We have been expecting you. Evelyn handed him the folder. File this injunction immediately. He nodded quickly, typing as fast as his hands could move. Yes, ma'am. It will be time-stamped within minutes. Nia stood beside her, checking her tablet. Ma'am, media outlets are confirming the filing. It is already trending. Evelyn exhaled slowly, her tone calm. Good. Let them read what accountability looks like in ink. Maya stood a few feet away, watching her mother interact with the clerk. There was something almost surreal about it, this woman, who could silence rooms full of generals and politicians now speaking in measured tones to a courthouse employee. Strength did not always look like a battlefield. Sometimes it looked like paperwork sliding across a counter. As they stepped away from the filing desk, a young journalist approached, microphone trembling in her hand. "Colonel Carter," she said, voice tentative, "people are calling this the start of a national reform movement. Did you intend for it to go this far?" Evelyn stopped, meeting her eyes. "No," she said simply. "I intended for it to go far enough." The reporter blinked. "And how far is that?" "Until a woman like my daughter can walk home in silence without wondering who sees her as a threat." The journalist lowered her mic, momentarily speechless. The three women exited through the courthouse doors into a crowd that had doubled in size since they arrived. Reporters shouted questions. Camera flashes burst like fireworks, but Evelyn did not slow. She made her way to the small platform near the steps where microphones waited. She stood behind them and let the crowd quiet itself. The fog hung low around her, the air dense, almost cinematic. "Today," she began, "we filed a federal injunction to ensure that no officer here or anywhere can hide behind a pause in justice. The city may stall, the system may hesitate, but the truth does not sleep." "Oh." A murmur spread through the crowd. She continued, "When a wrong is delayed, it becomes permission. When silence follows injustice, it becomes endorsement. We are not here to demand vengeance. We are here to require memory, because if they forget, they will repeat." Behind her, Maya watched with quiet awe. Her mother's voice was steady as ever, but there was something new in it, something deeper than command. It was conviction carrying exhaustion like a torch. Evelyn looked out over the crowd. "Every file they hide, every truth they delay, every story they distort, we will document it. We will publish it. We will not let it fade beneath paperwork and protocol." Her final words rose like the steady strike of a drum. "Justice does not pause. Neither do we." The applause was immediate, rolling, sustained, fierce. The sound filled the courthouse square, echoing against the stone like a heartbeat. Evelyn stepped back from the microphone, her face unreadable. The battle had shifted from confrontation to reform, from the subway to the system, and she knew this was only the beginning. As they walked back toward the SUV, Maya whispered, "Do you think they will listen this time?" Evelyn answered without looking back. "They will listen," she said, "if not to me, then to history." And with that, the colonel climbed into the car, the crowd still chanting her words, "Justice does not pose. Neither do we." The words followed her through the city streets, not as a slogan, but as a promise, one written in resolve and signed in silence. By the next morning, New York City was vibrating with noise. News anchors argued over policy, protesters filled sidewalks, and the video from the courthouse speech was being replayed on every platform, every hour. The phrase, "Justice does not pause," had become the country's newest rallying cry. It was printed on posters, shouted in classrooms, whispered in offices where people who had once stayed quiet were finally talking. Inside Carter Defense Systems, the atmosphere was different. The sleek hallways that once carried only the rhythm of precision now pulsed with anticipation. Employees stood in small groups, whispering about the injunction, about the woman who had turned silence into command. Evelyn stepped out of the elevator at exactly 8 o'clock. Conversations stopped instantly. She walked through the lobby without looking up, her boots clicking on marble, steady, sharp, unhurried. The staff did not cheer, but they straightened. Respect always followed her like a shadow. Maya waited for her in the top-floor conference room. She had not slept either. Her phone kept buzzing with messages from strangers thanking her, from journalists requesting statements, from former classmates suddenly remembering her number. She had muted every notification. When her mother entered, Maya stood. "They are calling you the silent general on the news." Evelyn set her briefcase down. "They like titles more than truth." Maya smiled faintly. "You do not like it?" "I do not dislike it," Evelyn said. "But silence is not my strategy. It is my weapon." Captain Nia Thompson entered moments later, tablet in hand. "Ma'am, the city's legal counsel has requested mediation. They want to avoid federal escalation." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "That is fast." "Yes, ma'am. They said the mayor personally asked to meet with you this afternoon, privately." Evelyn crossed to the window, her reflection merging with the skyline. "They are not calling for mediation," she said. "They are calling for containment." Maya frowned. "You think they are trying to make this disappear?" Her mother turned. "They are hoping I will settle. They want to trade apology for silence." Nia nodded grimly. If I may speak freely, ma'am, settling would destroy the movement before it begins. Evelyn gave a small nod. Which is why we will not. She turned to Maya. You will attend with me. Maya looked startled. Me? Why? Because they need to see the person they tried to erase. They need to look you in the eye and realize you are not an example, you are a warning. Maya hesitated, fear flickering behind her eyes. Mom, I do not want to become a symbol. Evelyn softened, placing a hand on her shoulder. Symbols are not chosen, Maya. They are made. What matters is what you do once you are seen. The meeting was set for 2 o'clock at the mayor's private office. Until then, Evelyn buried herself in reports, reviewing every legal clause and procedural loophole that could be used against them. She memorized them the way a soldier memorizes terrain. At 1:45, the SUV pulled away from the building. Maya sat beside her mother, hands folded tightly in her lap. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. Are you nervous? Evelyn asked. Maya nodded. Yes. Good, Evelyn said. It means you are awake. The car turned onto Chambers Street. Protesters lined the sidewalks holding signs that read, "Authority is not immunity," and "Justice with dignity." As the SUV passed, some cheered, others simply raised their fists in silent salute. When they entered the mayor's office, the air smelled faintly of cedar and politics. The mayor rose from behind his desk, flanked by the police commissioner and the city's legal counsel. His smile was polite, his tone practiced. Colonel Carter, Miss Carter, thank you for coming, he said. Please, sit. Evelyn remained standing. We will not be long. The mayor exchanged a glance with the commissioner, then gestured toward a folder on the desk. This contains the city's proposal. Full suspension of Officer McKenna without pay, a formal apology, and a commitment to review departmental procedures. Maya opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the document, her stomach tightening. Review, she repeated, not reform. The mayor cleared his throat. Language matters, but progress takes time. Evelyn's voice was calm but lethal. So does cowardice. The commissioner bristled. Colonel, with all due respect, your involvement has already damaged public trust in law enforcement. Public trust was damaged the moment your officer believed a black woman's success looked suspicious, Evelyn said. My involvement just gave the public evidence. The mayor sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We can negotiate terms. Surely there is a middle ground. Evelyn stepped closer. Middle ground only exists between equals. Do you see equals in this room, mister? Mayor? He hesitated, eyes darting between the two women. Evelyn continued. My daughter was handcuffed for existing. I was ignored until cameras appeared. You do not get to ask for quiet after that. Maya closed the folder. We are not here for compensation, she said softly. We are here for confirmation that this will never happen again. The mayor leaned back, defeated. What will it take to end this, Colonel? Evelyn's eyes locked on his. The beginning of something new. The room fell silent. Outside the window, the chants from the crowd drifted faintly upward. Justice does not pause. Justice with dignity. Evelyn placed both hands on the desk, her posture controlled but electric. You will create an independent board, funded by the city but governed by civilians, to review every complaint of racial misconduct. Transparent hearings, public reports, no internal red tape. That is the cost of peace. The mayor stared at her, stunned. That is radical. Evelyn's voice was steady. Radical is just another word for overdue. The commissioner opened his mouth to argue, but Evelyn raised a hand. If you refuse, I will take this to the federal level. And if the federal courts stall, I will take it to the streets. I do not bluff, gentlemen. I deploy. The mayor swallowed hard. We will review the proposal. Evelyn straightened. You will implement it. Without another word, she turned and walked out. Maya followed, her heart pounding. As they stepped into the sunlight, the crowd outside erupted again. Cameras flashed, chanting swelled. Evelyn paused at the top of the steps, the wind catching her hair. Maya whispered, Do you think they will do it? Evelyn's eyes stayed fixed ahead. They will, she said quietly. Not because they want to, but because now everyone is watching. Yeah. And as they descended the steps, the chants followed them, echoing through the city that was finally beginning to understand that justice, once awakened, does not sleep. The city was awake in a way it had not been in years. That night, while the mayor's office scrambled to draft public statements and the police union held emergency meetings behind closed doors, The streets pulsed with a rare kind of energy. People gathered in parks, on sidewalks, in subway stations, talking, sharing, remembering. Strangers exchanged nods of recognition as if a collective veil had been lifted. Evelyn watched it unfold from her office window at Carter Defense Systems. The view stretched over Manhattan like a living pulse of light. Down below, crowds marched with signs that bore her words, "Justice does not pause. Authority is not immunity." The chants were rhythmic, not chaotic. There was anger, yes, but there was also purpose, controlled, focused. Captain Nia Thompson stood at the opposite end of the room, her tablet glowing. "Ma'am, the mayor's office has reached out again," she said. "They want to schedule a joint press briefing tomorrow morning. They claim it will reaffirm unity." Evelyn gave a small, humorless smile. Unity is their way of saying surrender without admitting defeat. Nia hesitated. "Should I decline?" "No," Evelyn said. "We will attend. Let them stand beside what they were forced to confront." She turned from the window. Her uniform looked heavier tonight, as if it had absorbed the weight of every expectation laid upon her. "What about the media narrative?" she asked. "Are they keeping the focus on policy?" Nia scrolled through her feed. "Mostly. Some outlets are pushing back, saying you overstepped. They are calling you the most powerful, unelected figure in New York." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Power is not the problem. The problem is who finally wields it." Maya entered then, holding a folder of printed articles. Her expression was weary but composed. "Mom," she said softly, "they are digging into your past now. Old operations, defense contracts, even your military service records." Evelyn nodded. "Of course they are. When they cannot discredit your words, they try to rewrite your history." "Should we respond?" Maya asked. "No," Evelyn said. "History does not need defense. It needs witnesses." For a long moment, the room was quiet except for the hum of city noise below. Then Maya spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like you are fighting everyone now. The system, the city, the press. Do you ever worry that you are alone in this?" Evelyn turned, meeting her daughter's eyes. "Alone?" she said. "Maya, look outside." They both turned toward the window. Down below, thousands of people were still marching, students, workers, families, veterans. A sea of faces lit by streetlights, all chanting the same words. "Justice with dignity." Evelyn's voice softened. "That is the sound of not being alone." Maya watched her mother's reflection in the glass. For a moment, she saw not the soldier or the CEO, but the woman beneath the one who carried decades of battle behind her silence. "You look tired," she said. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Tired is what truth feels like when it refuses to stop. Just then, Captain Thompson's phone vibrated. She checked the message, her face tightening. "Ma'am, we have a situation. Officer McKenna just gave an exclusive interview to a national outlet." Evelyn's jaw hardened. "What did he say?" Thompson hesitated. "He is claiming you orchestrated the entire confrontation. He says your daughter provoked him and that the footage was manipulated by your company's technology." Maya's stomach dropped. "He is lying." Evelyn's tone was cold steel. "Of course he is lying, but lies only live when truth stays quiet." Nia handed her the tablet, playing the clip. On screen, McKenna appeared calm, almost rehearsed. "I was following protocol," he said. "They turned it into a spectacle. I believe it was a setup from the start." The host nodded sympathetically. "You are saying the footage was tampered with?" "I am saying the footage was edited to make me look guilty," McKenna replied. "They are trying to ruin my life for a political agenda." End of. The screen froze on his face. Evelyn stared at it for a long time, then set the tablet down. "He thinks he can rewrite what the world saw," she said. "Then we will remind them." Maya frowned. "How?" Evelyn's eyes glinted with purpose. "Tomorrow, at the press briefing, we show the final piece of the evidence, the part we held back." Nia blinked. "You mean the biometric record?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "The heat signatures, the sound mapping, everything that proves he knew exactly what he was doing." Maya looked uncertain. "Will that not escalate things?" "It will end them," Evelyn replied. "Sometimes justice does not shout. Sometimes it simply demonstrates." The rain began to fall again, streaking the window with silver lines. Evelyn walked closer, resting a hand against the cool glass. "Tomorrow, They will learn that silence can be proof too, she said. Because even when no one speaks, the data still remembers. Ugh. Maya crossed her arms, her voice softer now. Do you ever wish you had stayed silent from the start? Evelyn turned toward her, her expression firm but gentle. No, silence was their comfort, not mine. Outside, thunder rolled over the skyline like a drumbeat of inevitability. Evelyn turned to Nia. Prepare the visuals for tomorrow. I want it ready by 8 o'clock sharp. Yes, ma'am. As Nia left the room, Maya lingered, watching her mother still standing at the window. What happens when all of this is over? She asked. Evelyn's answer came after a long pause. When it is over, I want you to walk into any room, any city, any life, and never lower your eyes again. Maya nodded, her throat tight. You think that will really change people? Evelyn's eyes lifted to the storm outside. It will change the ones who are ready. The rest will follow when the world stops letting them look away. The thunder cracked again, louder this time. Evelyn looked down at the streets one more time at the people marching beneath the rain, holding signs that shimmered under streetlight glow. She whispered almost to herself, they can drown out voices, but they cannot erase echoes. Then she turned off the lights, leaving only the city's reflection in the window, her silhouette merging with the storm that was already rewriting the skyline in flashes of light and resolve. The morning broke with a weight that felt deliberate. The sky was still heavy from the night's storm, its clouds dragging across the skyline like bruises that had not yet healed. The city was restless, whispering, waiting. Every news outlet was counting down to the press briefing. Every camera crew had staked its claim on the courthouse steps. Every screen in every cafe and office lobby glowed with the same caption, Colonel Carter responds to Officer McKenna's allegations live at 10, 0 amperes, M. Inside Carter Defense Systems headquarters, the air hummed with quiet intensity. The conference floor had been transformed overnight into a digital command center. Monitors glowed with live feeds, encrypted servers, and news broadcasts from every major network. Evelyn stood at the center, surrounded by her team. Her uniform was pristine, her face composed, but her eyes carried the kind of exhaustion only purpose could sustain. Captain Nia Thompson adjusted a headset, glancing at her screen. Ma'am, the networks are speculating. Half of them believe McKenna's story. The other half think he is desperate. The city is split right down the middle. Evelyn's tone was calm. That is what happens when truth gets diluted with comfort. It tastes bitter to those who have lived too long on denial. Maya entered from the far door, carrying a folder of printed reports. Her movements were deliberate, steady, but Evelyn could see the tension in her shoulders. They are calling him the victim now, Maya said quietly. He is getting sympathy interviews. They are talking about how he has a family, how his life is ruined. Evelyn met her daughter's gaze. People always rush to humanize guilt before they confront it. It makes them feel safer. Maya placed the folder on the table. Are you sure about releasing the biometric data? Once it is public, there is no going back. Evelyn looked at her, expression firm. We are not going back, Maya. We are going through. She turned to Nia. How long until the press briefing? 45 minutes, ma'am. Evelyn nodded. Then it is time. She walked to the central monitor where a digital map of data nodes pulsed in soft blue light. Upload the secondary footage, she ordered. The thermal record, the sound profile, and the body camera telemetry. I want them synced in real time. Nia hesitated. Ma'am, that will expose our system architecture. Evelyn looked at her. Justice without transparency is theater. Let them see the machinery. Let them understand what truth looks like when it refuses to be deleted. Nia nodded and began typing. The screens flickered. On one monitor, the heat signatures from the subway confrontation came to life. Vivid streaks of orange and red, McKenna's outline burned bright, aggressive, while Maya's smaller form glowed steady, still. The room went silent. Even without words, the data told a story. Maya stared at the image. That is, proof of intent, she whispered. Evelyn's voice was quiet but resolute. Intent leaves fingerprints, even in silence. A soft tone from Nia's tablet broke the moment. Ma'am, the mayor's office just confirmed attendance. The commissioner will be there as well, and apparently, McKenna's attorney. Evelyn's expression did not change. Good. Truth performs best in front of its doubters. At 9:30, the team packed up the encrypted drives and loaded them into secure cases. The convoy left the building 10 minutes later under escort. Cameras followed from the moment they hit the street. In the SUV, Maya looked out the window at the growing crowd. "Do you ever feel afraid?" she asked softly. Evelyn's gaze remained forward. "Every day," she said. "Fear is not failure, Maya. It is evidence that what you are doing matters." They arrived at the courthouse at 9:57. The plaza was already a storm of noise, reporters shouting, microphones thrust forward, drones hovering above. When Evelyn stepped out of the vehicle, the sound changed. It did not quiet completely, but it bent like the city itself was waiting for instruction. She climbed the steps with Maya beside her, Nia close behind carrying the black data case. The podium waited under the grand columns of City Hall, surrounded by flashing lights and anticipation. At exactly 10 o'clock, Evelyn stepped to the microphone. Her voice, when it came, was steady as a heartbeat. "Yesterday, a man accused me of manipulating truth. Today, I will let truth speak for itself." The crowd hushed instantly. Cameras zoomed. Evelyn continued. "This is the biometric record of the incident you all saw. It does not rely on opinion or editing. It records temperature, motion, and sound every heartbeat, every breath, every decision." She gestured to the large monitor behind her. The footage began to play. The thermal imagery filled the screen, two figures, one towering and heated with aggression, the other smaller but unwavering. The sound of McKenna's voice came through clear. "Get your hands where I can see them, girl." The crowd flinched hearing it again, but this time something new followed. The audio frequency of his pulse, elevated and erratic, spiking with every word. Then Maya's voice steady, calm, low. The pulse line beside her heat signature stayed level, controlled. Evelyn faced the cameras. That is what composure looks like under humiliation. That is what prejudice sounds like when it thinks no one is listening. The crowd was silent. Even the press stood still. Evelyn's voice sharpened. "They said the footage was edited, but science does not edit. It records. The data you see now was captured in real time and verified by two independent analysts. It shows not just what happened, but who we become when power meets bias." The mayor stood off to the side, his expression unreadable. The commissioner's face had gone pale. Evelyn looked directly into the cameras. "This is not about one officer. It is about a culture that confuses authority with superiority. It is about every woman, every man, every child who has been told that dignity is conditional." Maya stood behind her mother, tears quietly gathering but not falling. The air around them felt electric, thick, with the collective realization that no lie could survive what they had just seen. Evelyn's final words struck with precision. "The world is not divided by color. It is divided by conscience. Today, you have seen which side I stand on. The question is, where do you stand?" For a moment, there was silence so absolute that even the city seemed to hold its breath. Then, from somewhere deep in the crowd, applause began. It spread slow, deliberate, then unstoppable. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The chant began again, louder than ever before. "Justice with dignity! Justice with dignity!" Evelyn turned to Maya, her voice barely above the roar. "Now they cannot look away." And as the crowd swelled, as the data replayed again on screens across the plaza, Evelyn Carter, the soldier, the mother, the truth's final witness, stood tall beneath the gray sky, letting the noise rise, letting the city wake itself completely. The crowd's roar echoed long after Evelyn stepped away from the podium. The chants rolled through the plaza, carried down the avenues like thunder, finding its way through steel canyons. For the first time, the noise was not chaos. It was conviction. It was the sound of a city remembering itself. Evelyn and Maya made their way through the marble corridor of City Hall. The press was still shouting outside, but inside, the air was eerily still. Every footstep echoed against the high ceilings. The commissioner followed behind them, his face pale and drawn. The mayor trailed as well, silent now, his earlier composure shattered by what the world had just seen. In the private conference room, the door closed with a soft but final click. The noise of the world was gone. It was only the four of them now. Evelyn removed her gloves and laid them on the table. Her movements were deliberate, ritualistic, the calm before judgment. The mayor spoke first, his voice brittle. "Colonel Carter," he said, "the footage has gone international. Every major network is broadcasting it. I will be honest, there is no containing this anymore." Evelyn looked at him steadily. Good. Containment was the problem. Ugh. The commissioner's voice broke through the silence, rough with frustration. You have humiliated this department. You have humiliated me. Evelyn turned toward him, her tone even. You humiliated yourself the moment you let silence serve as policy. He slammed his hand on the table. You do not understand what it means to lead thousands of officers, to manage pressure, to maintain order. I understand better than you think, Evelyn interrupted. Her voice was calm, but the air around her seemed to tighten. I led men and women into combat in 3 different continents. I buried friends who believed in orders, even when those orders were wrong. Leadership is not about control, Commissioner. It is about conscience. The mayor rubbed his forehead, his voice low. The federal office has already called. They want a full investigation into your department's racial bias procedures. The oversight board you proposed, Evelyn cut him off, will be formed immediately. He hesitated. Yes, he said finally. It will. The commissioner glared at her. You are destroying the foundation of law enforcement. Evelyn met his gaze, unflinching. No, Commissioner, I am repairing it. Foundations that cannot survive truth are not foundations. They are fractures waiting to collapse. The room fell silent. Then the mayor said, Colonel Carter, you will have the authority to appoint the first oversight committee. Choose wisely. The entire nation will be watching. Evelyn nodded once. I already have someone in mind. Maya looked at her mother, startled. You mean? Evelyn turned to her. Yes, you. Maya froze. Mom, I cannot. You can, Evelyn said firmly, because this began with you. Because you stood there in that subway and chose dignity over despair. That is what this oversight board needs, people who understand what injustice feels like when it wears a uniform. The mayor smiled faintly. She will have our full support. The commissioner muttered. She has already dismantled your control, and now you are giving her more? The mayor shot him a warning look. Enough, Commissioner. This conversation is over. Evelyn rose, picking up her gloves. No, gentlemen, she said quietly. This era is over. They left the room without another word. Outside, the plaza was still alive with people. The rain had stopped, but the ground gleamed with its residue. The air carried the scent of iron and change. Cameras flashed as Evelyn and Maya emerged, but this time they did not stop to speak. The message had already been delivered. As they reached the SUV, Maya turned to her mother. You should be the one leading that board, not me. Evelyn opened the car door but paused, looking at her daughter. I have spent my life teaching people how to fight, she said. It is time I teach someone how to lead after the fight. Maya swallowed hard. What if I am not ready? Evelyn's expression softened. Readiness is not a feeling, Maya. It is a decision. The crowd began chanting again as they entered the vehicle this time. Softer, steadier, like a prayer being passed from voice to voice. Justice with dignity. Evelyn looked out the window at the thousands of faces lit by morning light. The city seemed cleaner somehow, the edges sharper, the silence purposeful. Maya followed her gaze. You changed everything, she whispered. Evelyn shook her head. No. We revealed what was already there. Truth does not change the world, it reminds it of itself. As the SUV pulled away, a shaft of sunlight broke through the clouds, cutting across the courthouse dome. Evelyn watched it reflect in the window like a promise being sealed. Now, she said quietly, the rebuilding begins. And for the first time since the confrontation began, she allowed herself to breathe, not like a soldier ending a mission, but like a mother watching the dawn finally arrive after a very long night. 3 days later, the city no longer felt like the same place. The air still buzzed with news helicopters, but now their lenses captured something new, hope disguised as policy. For the first time in years, New York City was rewriting its own rules under public scrutiny. Billboards displayed the words, Accountability Board, Applications Open, and Justice with Dignity, the new standard. Inside City Hall, the first official meeting of the Oversight Committee was about to begin. Reporters filled the marble hallway, microphones ready, eyes alert. Behind the doors, a long table gleamed under the overhead lights, lined with folders, nameplates, and documents that would shape the city's next chapter. At the head of that table sat Maya Carter. She wore a fitted navy suit, no medals, no rank, just quiet authority. Her posture was straight, her expression calm but alert. To her left sat 2 community advocates, and to her right, a retired police captain who had publicly supported reform. At the far end of the room, Colonel Evelyn Carter stood in the background, observing. She was not there as a commander or a CEO today. She was there as a witness. The mayor opened the session, his voice formal but reverent. This meeting marks a new day for the city of New York. The Oversight Committee will ensure that every act of law enforcement is met with transparency, fairness, and equal accountability under the law. Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. Maya inhaled deeply, steadying herself. "Miss Carter," the mayor said, turning toward her, "as the first chair of this committee, you have the floor." Maya rose. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the microphone. "3 weeks ago," she began, "I was handcuffed in a subway station for existing in the wrong skin. I was humiliated, doubted, and dismissed. But that moment did not destroy me. It revealed the cracks in a system that was already breaking." She glanced toward her mother, who gave a slow, reassuring nod. Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "We are not here to wage war on police. We are here to build peace through accountability. True respect for the badge does not come from fear. It comes from trust. And trust only exists when there is transparency." Her words carried through the chamber, calm and precise, yet each syllable felt carved in steel. "The Oversight Committee will review every misconduct claim with civilian oversight," she said. "We will publish findings publicly. We will ensure that no badge, no title, and no political favor stands between truth and consequence." Reporters scribbled furiously. The mayor watched her with quiet awe. Maya took a breath. "My mother taught me that justice is not the absence of anger, it is the presence of purpose. Today, we begin the purpose." She sat down to thunderous applause. The crowd in the hallway outside erupted. Some cried. Others clapped in rhythm. Evelyn stepped forward then, joining her daughter at the table. She placed a single folder in front of her. "For your first case," she said softly. Maya opened it. Inside was a photograph of Officer McKenna. Beneath it, a summary of his conduct report and the pending federal investigation. She looked up at her mother, uncertain. Evelyn's expression was unreadable. "Justice is not revenge," she said quietly, "but it is still accountability." Maya nodded slowly. "Then we start here." The mayor cleared his throat. "Do you wish to recuse yourself, Miss Carter, given the personal history?" Maya looked him straight in the eye. "No," she said, "because this is not personal anymore. It is public." A hush fell over the room. Reporters leaned forward, their pens still. Evelyn stood silently behind her daughter, her hands clasped behind her back. In her posture, there was something ancient, an echo of every mother who had ever fought not just for her child, but for the world that child would inherit. Maya spoke again, her tone resolute. "Officer McKenna will receive a fair review, as will every officer who comes before this board. But fair does not mean forgotten. His file will be examined with the same precision he failed to use when he examined me." The mayor nodded. "Then let it be entered into record. Case 1 of the Carter Oversight Committee." Applause broke out again, not as loud this time, but heavier like the sound of history finding its footing. Evelyn leaned close to her daughter. "You just made history, Maya," she whispered. Maya smiled faintly. "No, Mom. We corrected it." The cameras clicked, capturing the two women side by side, the mother who had broken the system open and the daughter who would rebuild it. Outside, the crowd was chanting again, but softer now, almost reverent. "Justice with dignity! Justice with dignity!" For the first time since that morning in the subway, Evelyn let herself smile fully. Not the smile of triumph, but of peace, the kind that comes when the fight no longer needs volume to be heard. And as the gavel struck, signaling the official beginning of the Oversight Committee, the sound echoed through City Hall and out into the streets, a single note that told the world. This time, justice was not a promise, it was a policy. The first case review took place 1 week later. The entire country was watching. News networks carried live feeds, commentators whispered predictions, and on the steps of City Hall, hundreds gathered in silence, no signs, no chants, only presence. It was not protest anymore. It was witness. Inside the chamber, the Oversight Committee sat in solemn focus. Cameras were allowed, but no commentary. Maya sat at the center, a tablet in front of her, the folder marked Case 1, McKenna, Derek. Across from her, the former officer sat with his attorney. His uniform was gone. In its place, a plain gray suit that looked too stiff for humility. Evelyn sat quietly behind her daughter, no longer at the table but close enough for Maya to feel the gravity of her calm. She was there as a civilian now, not as a colonel, yet her presence still commanded the room. The lead investigator read the charges aloud. Excessive force, profiling, misuse of authority, dereliction of procedural integrity, each phrase dropped like a hammer on polished stone. McKenna's attorney spoke first. "My client has suffered enough," he said, his tone rehearsed. "He lost his job, his reputation, and his peace of mind. We cannot destroy one man to repair a system." Maya's voice, when she spoke, was low but sharp. "The system destroyed itself. We are just examining the wreckage." McKenna avoided her gaze. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. "I was following training," he muttered. "It is not my fault how people react." Maya leaned forward slightly. "Training does not teach fear, officer. It reveals it." The room went still. Cameras zoomed in. Her tone never rose, but the precision of her words left no air for excuses. Evelyn watched her daughter, pride flickering behind her stillness. This was not the frightened young woman from the subway anymore. This was leadership tempered by experience and sharpened by injustice. The investigator presented the evidence next. The body camera footage, the biometric heat map, the transcript of the audio. It was all there again, the aggression, the smirk, the moment when power thought it was untouchable. McKenna looked small under the light of his own reflection. His attorney whispered urgently, but he stayed silent. The footage ended, and the room held its breath. Maya broke the silence. "Do you have anything to say?" McKenna's voice cracked. "I made a mistake," he said, "but I did not mean to hurt anyone." Maya nodded slowly. "Mistakes end when accountability begins." She turned to the committee. "This review is not about punishment. It is about precedent. What we decide today will tell every officer what integrity means when no one is watching." The votes were cast in silence. Unanimous. Guilty of misconduct and bias. Recommendation. Permanent dismissal and referral for federal civil rights review. The gavel struck once. Evelyn closed her eyes. It was not satisfaction she felt. It was balance long overdue, but finally tangible. As McKenna stood, security escorting him from the room, he paused for a moment and looked toward Evelyn. "You ruined my life," he said quietly. Evelyn met his gaze without blinking. "No," she said. "I revealed it." He looked away first. When the doors closed behind him, the silence that followed was not heavy. It was cleansing. The city outside seemed to exhale. Maya looked over at her mother, her voice trembling with relief. "It is done." Evelyn shook her head. "It has begun." Reporters rushed to their microphones, but for once, neither woman spoke. They simply walked out together, through the echoing corridor and into the sunlight. The crowd outside erupted into applause, not loud, but deep. It rolled across the plaza like a heartbeat, steady and alive. Maya looked at the faces in the crowd and whispered, "Do you hear that?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Yes," she said. "That is the sound of a system learning to breathe." And for the first time in years, the city's pulse felt steady, realigned not by fear, but by fairness. 2 months later, the city no longer marched. It walked calmly, confidently, deliberately. What had once been protest was now participation. People filled community centers instead of streets. Police precincts held open forums instead of press conferences. And in every borough, from Harlem to Brooklyn, the phrase, "justice with dignity," had become more than a chant. It was a standard. The Carter Oversight Committee had processed 12 cases since McKenna. Each one was different, but the outcome was the same: transparency. For the first time in decades, the city's police reports were public. The system had been cracked open, and sunlight was finally doing what silence never could. Inside the oversight office, the energy was steady but hopeful. The walls were lined with photographs, moments of change, each one captured not for celebration but for remembrance. At the center of the room, Maya stood by the window, reading a report. Her expression was calm but distant. Evelyn entered quietly, wearing a dark gray suit instead of her uniform. She had retired officially 3 weeks earlier. No more rank, no more medals. But power did not leave her. It only changed form. "You are reading again instead of eating," Evelyn said gently. Maya looked up, smiling faintly. "You sound like Nia." "She learned it from me," Evelyn replied, crossing the room. "How is it going?" Maya handed her the file. Case 13. A young officer stopped a black doctor on her way home from a night shift. Said she looked nervous. Same pattern, same story. Evelyn skimmed the page, her expression tightening. Patterns are habits pretending to be rules. That is what I wrote in the report, Maya said softly. And people are finally starting to listen. Evelyn set the file down. They are not listening to rules, Maya. They are listening to you. Maya turned back to the window. Do you ever think we changed it enough? Evelyn's voice was low. Change is not an event. It is maintenance. We built the engine. Now the next generation has to keep it running. Maya looked thoughtful. You think they will? Evelyn smiled. They will, because you gave them the blueprint. The office door opened, and Captain Nia Thompson stepped in, her presence still as grounded as ever. Ma'am, she said, addressing Evelyn out of habit, forgive me, old reflex. Evelyn chuckled softly. Reflexes are fine, Captain. They mean the lessons stuck. Nia turned to Maya. You have visitors downstairs, students from the academy. They asked to meet you. They said they want to see what leadership looks like without a badge. Maya's eyebrows lifted. Without a badge, she repeated. That might be the best compliment yet. Evelyn placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Go, let them see what power looks like when it is earned, not inherited. Maya hesitated. Will you come with me? Evelyn shook her head. No, this one is yours. Their eyes met mother and daughter, soldier and reformer, two women who had forced a city to confront its reflection. Then Maya nodded and left the room. Evelyn lingered by the window, watching as her daughter stepped into the lobby below. The students stood waiting, nervous but eager, holding notebooks and phones. When Maya spoke to them, her gestures were calm, her voice measured. The same composure Evelyn had once used on battlefields now lived in her daughter's quiet explanations. Captain Thompson joined Evelyn by the window. You trained her well, ma'am. Evelyn shook her head. No, the world did. I just refused to let it break her. Outside, the afternoon sun spilled across the city skyline. It caught the bronze plaque newly mounted on the courthouse steps, a single phrase engraved into stone. Justice with dignity, established by Colonel Evelyn Carter and Maya Carter, year 2025. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment, her reflection merging with the city beyond the glass. She was supposed to learn from me, she said softly. Instead, I learned from her. Nia smiled. That is what legacy looks like. Evelyn nodded slowly. No, that is what equality finally sounds like when it breathes. And down below, Maya's laughter rose through the open atrium light, grounded, free, the sound of a new era beginning exactly where the old one ended. Evening settled over New York City like a deep breath finally released. The sun sank behind the skyline, casting gold across glass towers and the slow-moving Hudson River. Down below, the city hummed not with chaos, but with rhythm. Sirens sounded softer. Conversations on street corners carried lighter tones. For once, justice was not a headline, it was a habit. Inside the Carter home, the lights were low. The walls that had once held silence and tension now glowed warm with peace. On the mantel sat two framed photos. The first, Evelyn in her military uniform, unyielding and proud. The second, Maya standing behind the oversight committee desk, her hands resting on a folder marked accountability. Between them, a single candle burned steadily, its flame still but alive. Evelyn sat in her favorite armchair, dressed in a simple sweater, a mug of tea resting between her hands. Her hair had grown slightly, streaked with silver that caught the light when she turned her head. Across from her, Maya sat barefoot on the couch, legs tucked under her, laptop balanced on her knees. They asked me to speak at the United Nations next month, Maya said quietly, on global policing standards. Oh. Evelyn smiled. The world is watching you now. Maya looked up. No, Mom, they are watching us. You started this. Evelyn shook her head gently. I started a fire. You kept it from burning everything down. They shared a long, quiet smile. Outside, faint sirens faded into the distance, replaced by the sound of wind brushing against the window. After a while, Maya closed her laptop. Do you miss it? Evelyn raised an eyebrow. The uniform? The command, Maya said. The constant purpose. Evelyn thought for a moment. Purpose never leaves, she said. It just changes shape. I commanded soldiers once. Now I command memory. Every time someone holds a badge a little more carefully because of what we did, that is command. Maya's voice softened. Do you ever wish it had gone differently? That you did not have to fight so hard? Evelyn's eyes drifted toward the candle flame. Every fight I ever took on came with a cost. But this one, she paused, her voice steady but full. This one gave me back something I did not think I would see in my lifetime: respect that does not have to be earned twice. The words lingered in the quiet. Maya crossed the room and sat on the floor beside her mother's chair, resting her head against Evelyn's knee like she had when she was a child. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just listened to the city breathing outside, to the rhythm of something new taking root. After a while, Evelyn said softly, "Do you remember what I told you that morning in the subway?" Maya smiled faintly. "To keep my hands where they could see them?" Evelyn chuckled. "Before that," Maya thought for a second. "You said, silence can be power if you choose when to break it." Evelyn nodded. "And you did." They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that does not need words to explain it. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, their glow stretching across the river like veins of gold. Evelyn leaned back, her eyes following the city's reflection. "Look at it," she said softly. "It finally looks honest." Maya looked too, the skyscrapers, the bridges, the countless windows full of life. "Do you think it will last?" Evelyn smiled. "If truth can survive corruption, then dignity can survive time." Maya stood and wrapped her arms around her mother's shoulders. "You know they are going to make a documentary about this, right?" Evelyn laughed. "Let them. Maybe someone will see it and remember that justice does not need permission, it just needs persistence." The clock chimed quietly. The candle flickered once, then steadied again. Evelyn closed her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was never about proving we belonged. It was about reminding them that we always did." Maya looked at her mother, tears bright but calm. "You did that, Mom." Ugh. Evelyn reached for her hand. "No, we did." Outside, the night deepened, and the city's lights shimmered like a promise, bright, unbroken, infinite. And somewhere beneath that light, where truth had once been silenced, a new kind of peace began to hum, quietly measured, powerful, and unmistakably dignified. Fade out.